Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I'm inside the Beltway. A happy Thanksgiving to all of you. As you prepare, some of you to drive to a small pod Thanksgiving somewhere far away, or you are already there and listening to me on a different platform. Maybe you're watching on Facebook this morning. Good morning. On YouTube. Good morning. If you're watching on Instagram, good morning. The biggest story of the day, which I will come to in a moment, concerns the Dow Jones Industrial Average going over 30,000 points yesterday and closing at 30,040 something. It's really a remarkable thing, and it's a testament to America. 30,046. In fact, let me do the market report early, brought to you by Birch Gold. And if you're buying gold for your loved ones this Christmas, which is always smart, go to hughgold.com or simply text my name, Hugh, H-U-G-H, to 474747, and Birch Gold are the people to deal with. And that, by the way, is the best Christmas present. If you can afford it, give your kids, give your grandkids gold. Why? Because they won't spend it. They'll save it. They'll save it in the rainy day fund. It will not lose its value. Gold is trading this morning at $1,806, so it's lower than its $2,000 an ounce market point from just a couple of months ago, and I believe it's going to go back to that this year because of the inflationary pressures that will come once the virus is defeated, and it will be defeated. That's why the Dow went over 30,000 points yesterday. So, as we come into what will be, I believe, an inflationary period, it is very smart to own gold, roll over a portion of your IRA or 401k into gold, and do it with Birch Gold again. Go to hughgold.com or text my name, Hugh, to 474747. Yesterday, the Dow went to 30,000. And the reason is simple. The market is absorbing the facts of Operation Warp Speed. Now, I spent a long time on the phone yesterday with the family's toxicologist. Every family should have a doctor. We don't. We have a PhD toxicologist who has been developing drugs for 45 years, retired 2 years ago. So I spent an hour talking to the good doctor about what's going on out there. And he's just blunt. Operation Warp Speed is the most amazing thing he has ever seen in his scientific career. It usually takes 11 to 12 years to develop a drug. We have developed 3 critically necessary targeted drugs in 10 months. The astonishing scientific advance, he noted, is matched by a logistical march to excellence that is unparalleled in the history of medicine. Not only did these 3 drugs arrive from scratch, they have arrived and are ready to be distributed. Indeed, it is his belief that every frontline medical worker, every first responder, will have the opportunity to have the vaccine by the end of December. He believes that supplies are so large and pre-produced as much as possible to such an extent that they have got the ability to give a vaccine in America to everyone who needs a vaccine, who wants to get one. Not everyone who needs one. We'll talk about that in a moment. Anyone who puts their hand up and says, I want Pfizer or Moderna or AstraZeneca, he believes that they will have that opportunity in America by the end of March. The first vaccines are being delivered in Ohio, according to Governor DeWine, in 2 weeks. And they are rolling out across the United States. I queried him, how did this happen? And he talked about the pre-production of vaccines on spec from both Pfizer and Moderna. And he credited Operation Warp Speed. He also credits, by the way, Donald Trump. He credits all the scientists. He credits everybody. He is himself a Trump supporter. He says about 80% of the people involved in the development of these drugs, the production of these drugs, the distribution of these drugs, are probably Biden supporters, the people with whom he's worked for all these years. But science is apolitical. There is no reason why they would. There's no reason that they could have delayed it. It got here as quickly as possible. And it's an extraordinary achievement, a history of science moment, something that people will be studying for centuries and centuries. The reason being we have never, as humankind, seen a disease arrive, target it, throw everything at it, and conquer it. We've never seen that before. And we've done it. Science has done it. The government has done it. The military has done it. You have done it by limiting the spread of the disease, though it is right now raging. That will begin to tide will turn in 2 weeks, and it will be out when 70% of America is vaccinated. Now, my retired toxicologist told me that is likely to be September, because even though it will be widely available for anyone who wants to get it by the middle of March, many people will choose not to. I'm here to beg you, start making plans to get it. We need this to save the country, to save the world, to save lives. 500 lives a week. And we can do that and take our hats off to Donald Trump and Vice President Pence and every member of the task force and every scientist and executive advisor in Moderna and AstraZeneca and everyone who's contributed to the logistics, the American military. It's just remarkable. That is why Dow hit 30,000. They realize, even though the shutdown will continue for another month or so and people are going to continue to use Amazon and Target and Costco and all those others because they don't want to go out until after they get the vaccine, it's here. It's real. And the news is sinking in. The other thing I want to tell you at the beginning of this is I have a new Washington Post column. You have to Google Hugh Hewitt and Washington Post, and the list of them will come up. The title is Why the Georgia Senate Runoffs Are Hugely Important for Rule of Law Conservatives. And I want you to hear it. Why does it matter so much that two rule of law conservatives, that Republican Senators David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler win their January 5 runoffs in Georgia? Because control of the Senate depends on either Perdue or Loeffler beating Jon Ossoff or Raphael Warnock, their respective Democratic opponents. Both wins would be better, as that would mean a 52-48 GOP majority. If Perdue or Loeffler win, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell keeps his job. If Ossoff and Warnock both win, Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer becomes the Majority Leader. Liberals and leftists have been chagrined by Schumer's all-too-revealing exultation as he recently celebrated Joe Biden's election victory. Now we take Georgia, then we change America. If Schumer wins Senate control, he can indeed change America by beginning the undoing of the capstone achievement of McConnell's steady, disciplined 6 years as Majority Leader. Confirmation of 3 Supreme Court justices and 53 appeals court justices. Then Majority Leader Harry Reid in 2013 destroyed the filibuster as a check on radicalism in the judiciary. Under the pre-Reid rules, judicial nominees needed 60 votes to be confirmed. That threshold was abused by Democrats for many years. In early May of 2001, President George Bush made his first 11 nominations for the Federal Appeals Court. That group included future Supreme Court Justice John Roberts. It also included a previous nominee of President Bill Clinton, Roger Gregory, who had been placed on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit via a temporary recess appointment. Bush sought conciliation and consensus, and his gracious gesture of renominating Gregory was met by, scorn and obstruction. Reid and the then-ranking Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, Patrick Leahy, went into full opposition in 2001, though they did confirm Gregory. An opposition that became more effective when Jim Jeffords of Vermont switched parties. Democrats took control of the Senate and of the proceedings of the Judiciary Committee. The obstruction became a blockade. When Republicans took control in January of 2003, Leahy and Reid were back in the minority, and they used the old filibuster to keep many superb nominees from confirmation, including William Pryor, Miguel Estrada, Carolyn Cool. The obstruction became so absurd that then Senate Majority Leader Bill Frist threatened to use the nuclear option, a change of the Senate rules to a simple majority confirmation. Frist did not have to use that option because center-left Democrats led by Ben Nelson of Nebraska teamed up with John McCain and others to craft the Gang of 14. Well, my friends, what happened after that was Harry Reid used the nuclear option in 2013. And that means that if Raphael Warnock and Jon Ossoff win robes, that, Georgia, is why you have to save the courts, the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, the Second Amendment rights. In Georgia, you have to save the republic by voting for Perdue and Loeffler. Stay tuned, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Jennifer in Tustin, California. Hi.
Hi, Dennis. I love the fun on your show. More importantly, the clarity.
Yes. Well, if you
some...
like fun and clarity, I'm your man.
Excellent.
I'm your other man. You may be married or have a boyfriend.
Yes.
So I fully.
I am. I have a wonderful man.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm your other man.
Great.
Right.
I've heard you say. My question is, I've heard you say several times of late on the show that you would not take the COVID vaccine, and I feel the same way myself. But I'm wondering, what will I do if the COVID vaccine is mandatory? In the same way that, child vaccines are mandatory in many states. Have you thought about that?
I have thought about it. It's a real dilemma.
Okay.
Yes. If they don't allow you to go on an airplane without proof of a vaccine, I would have to weigh not being able to travel and give speeches and do my cruises I cannot live a life without travel. Yes, exactly. It's
right.
See, I want everybody listening who doesn't know, I've taken every vaccine offered, and my kids have taken all of them. I never had any interest in vaccines. I just took them. But I don't trust the medical establishment any longer. They, like the New York Times, they have lost me.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment.
Welcome back, America. Hugh Hewitt on Thanksgiving Eve. If you're driving somewhere, enjoy. Especially Mrs. Hewitt and I stayed up late last night watching the first episode of The Queen's Gambit. It had been recommended to us by many people, but we were transfixed. It's kind of bizarre how good it is and how troubling it is, but nevertheless, The Queen's Gambit, I'm a little sleepy. Therefore, let me rely on the President of the United States, Donald Trump, who gave a press conference yesterday that rang in at 1 minute and 4 seconds. Here's the entirety of it, cut number 10.
Thank you very much, and I just want to congratulate everybody The stock market, Dow Jones Industrial Average, just hit 30,000, which is the highest in history. We've never broken 30,000, and that's just despite everything that's taken place with the pandemic. I'm very thrilled with what's happened on the vaccine front. That's been absolutely incredible. It's, nothing like that has ever happened medically, and I think people are acknowledging that, and it's having a big effect. But the stock market's just broken 30,000. Never been broken, that number. That's a sacred number, 30,000. Nobody thought they'd ever see it. That's the 9th time since the beginning of 2020, and it's the 48th time that we've broken records during the Trump administration. And I just want to congratulate all the people within the administration that work so hard. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the people of our country, because there are no people like you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
That was it. And he is right to take a victory lap on Operation Warp Speed. It's more important that he get it pushed out as is happening because of the plans that have been laid. It's remarkable what has happened. Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson last night talks directly to the Georgia voters, and he says something they do need to hear. I got 13 affiliates in Georgia. Listen closely. Cut number 9.
For the first time in a decade, Democrats are set to control the House of Representatives and the executive branch. Now, in January, the state of Georgia will vote in 2 separate runoffs for Senate seats, and the results will determine which party controls the Senate. The stakes are huge. You're hearing some Republicans say, well, maybe we should let the Republicans lose because they're mad at the party in Washington. By the way, they have every reason to be mad at the party in Washington. They should be punished. The problem is the rest of us should not be punished. And if Democrats take full control of the U.S. government, all of us will be punished. So before you decide to sit this one out, you should think about what this might mean. You know who knows what it's going to mean? Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Watch this.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change the world. Yeah! I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Schumer? Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
Then we change America. They're not kidding, and you should know that. If Democrats take full control, the first priority will be to pass something called the HEROES Act. Now, you're told that's a coronavirus economic relief package, and there's some of that in there. But there's a lot more than that. The current House version contains a bunch of policies that will, and this is the point of them, create a permanent Democratic majority. The bill would legalize ballot harvesting, for example. That would allow Democratic Party organizers to collect absentee ballots and send them in. Sound like a good idea? Right. Future elections would be like the most recent one, but even worse and more corrupt. That's a fact, by the way. The bill would also allow illegal aliens to receive the $1,200 stimulus check that American citizens received earlier this year. People who have no right to be in this country would be receiving tax dollars. Really? Why? They don't explain, but that would happen. The bill would release federal inmates with health conditions and felons over the age of 50. Now, some of them probably won't cause any harm when they get out, but health conditions is so broadly defined, a lot of healthy criminals are going to be on the street, like we need more of that. The bill includes a $500 million grant that would pay states to release prisoners. What? It calls for more visas for foreign physicians, even as American doctors continue to face unemployment. What's the purpose of that? This legislation calls on Washington bureaucrats to find ways to expand financial services based on race, specifically in the marijuana business. Really? That's the answer? Even if you're for legalized weed, what's this about? It's about corporate profits, of course. The word cannabis appears 68 times in the bill. The word diversity appears 20 times. You get the point. If Democrats take the Senate, things are going to change really, really fast in ways most people aren't going to like at all. Legislation, by the way, would no longer take 60 votes to get through the Congress, because if Democrats control the Senate, they will eliminate the filibuster. And that means they can do whatever they want. They've already promised they're going to do that.
So, ladies and gentlemen of Georgia, please vote for Kelly Loeffler and David Perdue and come right back after the break on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment. Yesterday, the governor of California imposed a month-long 10 p.m. curfew for nearly everybody in the most populous state in America, California. And I just take a lot of comfort in knowing that the Trump administration delivered essentially a vaccine that in normal times would have taken 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Millions are praying, millions from around the world are praying for this election, which is obviously not yet settled. What do you see happening right now that people like me might be unaware of? What do you, being where you are and being close to the center, what do you see cooking?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt that this election, I don't use this word lightly, was stolen. President Donald Trump outperformed every part of the country that was not a focal point for Joe Biden to get enough votes electorally through the Electoral College to get over the top. Some great examples, Eric, and we have this incredible whiteboard here where we've been going through all of this. I mean, President Donald Trump outperformed Obama. He outperformed Mitt Romney, John McCain, and even his own numbers in 2016 dramatically. Miami-Dade County, President Donald Trump overperformed by 15 points versus 2016. He did better in New York City, Eric. He did better by about 5 or 6 points in New York City. And my best example for all of this, Eric, and this is just the most logical way that I could show it, is I'm from the Midwest. I know Madison, Wisconsin really well. And Madison, Wisconsin, of course, is where the University of Wisconsin-Madison is. And so in 2008, at the height of the Obama movement, President Barack Obama got 71% of the support in Dane County, Wisconsin. Joe Biden got 76% this time and 60,000 more votes. And the campus is closed, Eric. How is that possible?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I love playing Slice by John Androzek, Five for Fighting. People get together at Thanksgiving. They put aside their differences. I hope they do at least. One thing I am very pleased with is the response, which you'll have the opportunity to join it right now and throughout the month. At HughHewitt.com, there is a banner for Angel Tree. That is the group that provides Christmas joy to the children who have mother or father in jail, sometimes two, or in prison. And Angel Tree, which is a ministry of prison fellowship, which has been around since Chuck Colson converted to Christendom and the cause of Jesus, decades ago, before Chuck died. He would go into any prison anywhere in the world. Old friend of mine. And I interviewed him for PBS probably in 1995. Proclaimed the gospel on PBS. That was a shock to some people. But Chuck started Prison Fellowship. And out of Prison Fellowship came Angel Tree in 1982. And Angel Tree annually serves as a conduit between mothers and fathers who are jailed for long periods of time in prison and incarcerated, often for life sentences or long terms, with their children, their sons and daughters, especially the younger ones. They find those prisoners who have children, they connect them, and because of your support, they're able to provide presents from mom or dad, a note from mom or dad along with the presents, a copy of the Gospels in Spanish or English as appropriate. And they do it every year, and they do hundreds of thousands of children every year because of the generosity of believers around the world, but especially on the patios of American churches. Well, they can't go this year to church. A lot of churches are closed. Or if they're open, they are open in drive-ins, or they are open remotely, or they are open just for the services and people leave, or they're on reduced. There aren't church patios and fellowship halls full of people and the conviviality of carols and lessons, which is among many people's favorite Advent Sunday. It's just a different Christmas. We're grateful to be alive. We grieve with those who grieve. But I ask you to be generous. The stock market is booming. The country's divided into three-quarters of it is doing well during the pandemic, and one quarter has been crushed. Well, people in jail are not only exposed to higher risk of COVID, they're exposed to greater degrees of loneliness and worry about their families. And there are a lot of men and women in jail who long to see their children and can't, and who long to reach out and touch their lives at Christmas and don't have the resources. But you can make that possible. Can you be as generous as possible, please? At HughHewitt.com. At the very top, you'll see the banner. Give online. It's the most secure way. It's the best way to do it. Just go and fill out the form. Very secure. Prison Fellowship's been doing this for a long time. They've got the latest protections. Your data will be safe with Chuck Colson's gang. Just go and donate, and Christmas will be as a result of what you do. I want to go back to Georgia because I want to play for you what frames my Washington Post column today. And again, if you didn't hear me read it, just Google Hugh Hewitt and Washington Post. It'll be on the landing page sometime today. It's not up at the landing page yet, but it will. And it just says, look, the federal judiciary, which is the capstone of Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump's 4 years together, 3 Supreme Court justices, 53 appeals court judges, there might be one more district court judges. The federal judiciary is back in originalist hands, back applying the Constitution, applying law, interpreting law, not making up laws. Radicals have left the bench, like Stephen Reinhardt, who was a jolly fellow, and I argued before him once, but he was a left-wing radical. And whole courts have switched over to originalist points of view in the appeals court. The moment that Chuck Schumer becomes the majority leader is the moment that work begins to fall apart. Now, there are lots of moderate Democratic lawyers that Joe Biden can nominate in every state for every job. Lots of them. Center left. But if he is in charge, Chuck Schumer's in charge of the Senate, Joe Biden will be pushed and he will accommodate the left by nominating radicals to the bench. We need Mitch McConnell to stop that. And Joe Manchin's declaration that he will not support the end of the filibuster doesn't do anything to stop those nominees from being confirmed if Chuck Schumer is the majority leader. They will move them through judiciary, the wildest, craziest lawyer you know. You take the goofiest ACLU, the most radical lawyer who has been in representing the most radical people in America, and they will end up on the bench. And we will go back to a left-wing nuttery that the courts have been cleansed from by the addition of constitutionalist originalists. There are still some very liberal judges left over from the Obama era and the Clinton era, but they are offset by a 6-3 Supreme Court and serious majorities of serious originalists who don't make up law. They're not activists. They just apply the law and the Constitution. They protect your religious liberty. They protect your freedom of speech. They protect your Second Amendment rights. They protect your Fifth Amendment right to property without it being taken without just compensation. They will check agencies. That only happens if Mitch McConnell remains majority leader, and he only remains majority leader if David Perdue beats AOC Light John Ossoff, the trust fund socialist. Honestly, the least qualified guy I've seen run for Senate in all these years. Raphael Warnock is a qualified left-wing radical. He is just way out there. And he's very eloquent, he's very smart, and he's very radical. Here's Raphael Warnock in 2017, talking about racism as America's pre-existing condition. Cut number 5.
In this moment, in this American moment, we need to go to the right place. Because this is a lot bigger than a political argument. This is not just a social problem. This is a spiritual problem. This is a moral problem. Thank God for the New Baptist Covenant, because if ever there were a time that we need to get together, that time is now, because America is suffering from a deep spiritual problem. And what we are seeing is just symptomatic of our sickness. You ask yourself, how in the world did we end up here? Because this is bigger than the normal kinds of partisan debates that go on. We're in a special moment. We are in an evil moment. We are in a tragic moment. And I suggest to you that our politics is symptomatic of our sickness. We've got a lot of problems, but I would not be a prophet if I did not tell you that racism is America's pre-existing condition. And like the insurance companies, nobody wants to go there. Nobody wants to cover it because we wonder what it will cost. But we, the land of the free and the incarceration capital of the world, in this land where we warehouse 25% of the world's prisoners, although we are only 5% of the world, we ought to ask ourselves, what has it cost us not to cover it? Not to face up to it, not to confront it, not to deal with it. Racism is America's pre-existing condition.
Well, if you believe that, you can vote in Georgia for Raphael Warnock. I do not believe that. I don't believe what he said in 2011. Cut number 4.
In this moment, America, nobody can serve God and the military.
I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I believe, as Joni Ernst said yesterday, that many millions of Americans have served in uniform and served in the military and served God, indeed did so by serving in the military. And I don't believe Trump voters need to repent, which Pastor Warnock, Raphael Warnock, said after Donald Trump was elected. Cut 3.
And if it is true that a man who has dominated the news and poisoned the discussion for months needs to repent, then it is doubly true that a nation that can produce such a man and make his vitriol go viral needs to repent. no matter what happens next month, more than a third of the nation that would go along with this is reason to be afraid. America needs to repent for its worship of whiteness on full display this season. How is it that you can insult everybody? Call Muslims something other than children of God, call Mexicans murderers and rapists, insult the disabled. How is it you can insult everybody, but then one weekend somebody discovers in the recording that you insult those whose daughters and wives look like those who have been supporting you, and then all of a sudden we can't take it anymore. We gotta repent for the worship of whiteness.
You know, I do not believe we worship whiteness in the United States. I think that's a slander on the United States. I think Raphael Warnock is a radical's radical. And I believe that Georgia, you know that. John Ossoff is both silly and a menace. He makes AOC look like a PhD. He is a trust fund socialist, and he wants McCarthyism. Cut number 2, John Ossoff.
We need to send a message this year. We need to send a message that if you indulge this kind of politics, you're not just going to get beaten. You're going to get beaten so bad you can never run or show your face again in public. Because we have had enough, absolutely enough, of what we are getting from Donald Trump and his fellow travelers right now.
That is McCarthyism, and it is a menace to American freedom. But Chuck Schumer wants these two to win. And Chuck Schumer was very open about why. Cut number 1.
Now we take Georgia, and then we change the world. Yeah! I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Mr. Schumer? Now we take Georgia, and then we change America.
That is, to me, all you need to know about why you need to support Senator David Perdue, Georgia, why you need to support Senator Kelly Loeffler, Georgia, and why anyone who's listening to this show anywhere in the United States can go find their websites, can go support them, can volunteer. I mean, if you're a radical left-winger, you can go find Raphael Warnock as well. That's fine. Go find Raphael Warnock if you just want the country to become, well, as radical as Raphael Warnock is. He will easily become, he'll make Bernie Sanders look like a conservative. That's how radical Raphael Warnock is. Is that what Georgia wants? I don't think so. John Ossoff will just embarrass the state. He just will. He's a 33-year-old. He's done nothing but run for office and make bad movies with the support of, I believe, Al Jazeera and a Hong Kong company with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. That doesn't sound like Georgia to me. David Perdue is a man of accomplishment. Kelly Loeffler is a woman of accomplishment. I believe they will both be elected, and Mitch McConnell will remain the majority leader, and therefore the courts will remain secure, as I argue in the Washington Post today. Time for ReliefFactor.com, and wrong bag. I got 3 bags of it. There it is. I got 3 bags of it because I had run out last week, and it was bad. Got out yesterday in the wind and the cold. Got my miles in. Because, you know, if I'm going to eat around the house for all day tomorrow, I want to have my miles in already. Lukewarm coffee and the Relief Factor. There's no better way to begin the day. Lukewarm coffee and Relief Factor means I get my Icarian, Curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. Support for the temporary relief of the minor aches and pains that come. And tens of thousands of you take it every morning. I take it in the first hour to show you what to do, and I remind you in hours 2 and 3 of the show to take it before you leave the house, before you go about your business every day. It's like your vitamin in the morning. The only other thing I take is a vitamin. Don't take a lot of supplements, just ReliefFactor.com. It works, and you should try it. $19.95 is the starter pack. I'm coming back with Dr. Michael Oren joining us from Israel. The former ambassador from Israel to the United States is up next. What's he think of the new Biden team?
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Appreciate it. Chris is in San Antonio, Texas. Chris, you're on The Larry Elder Show.
Oh, wow. What an honor to speak with the great Eldersky. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Chris.
I guess my question is, can you imagine if this goes to the courts and then it goes to Congress and then it goes for President Trump like we all know it should?
Chris, mass suicide. Mass suicide.
This whole cities are going to be burning to the ground.
Their ears would explode. I mean, it would be catastrophic for the left if Donald Trump were awarded the election. You think we feel that the election was fraudulent? What do you think they're going to feel? They're going to go absolutely bonkers. They believe that the Russians not only interfered, but 78% of them believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election, even though our intelligence committee has never reached that conclusion. So they're going to go absolutely bonkers. Remember what Hillary advised Joe Biden?
So we've got to have a massive legal operation, and I know the Biden campaign is working on that. We have to have poll workers, and I urge people who are able to be a poll worker. We have to have our own teams of people to counter the force of intimidation that the Republicans and Trump are going to put outside polling places. This is a big organizational challenge, but at least we know more about what they're going to do. And, Joe Biden should not concede under any circumstances.
They would go absolutely ballistic.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Can we?
Welcome back, America, as we stand by for Michael Oren. He may be traveling. We just heard that. I want to play for you the reaction of legacy media to the appointments of Secretary of State Designate Tony Blinken, National Security Advisor Designate Jake Sullivan, a new DNI, a new UN ambassador. The new Biden team was appointed, and so many people commented on it. Here is Martha Raddatz on Good Morning America with George Stephanopoulos, cut number 7.
This is about the least flashy team you could possibly get. They are deeply experienced, they are humble, and they are lifelong public servants. When I look at that group up there, and let's put John Kerry aside, because as we know, he was the Democratic nominee for president once, but they are not political. They are just career people. They have worked together for many years. I remember Jake.
They are all political. They are all political, every one of them. I think Martha is a fine journalist. She reflects the Beltway consensus that wanted Biden elected. She reflects the 95% of elite media that are Democrats and liberals and leftists, and they wanted Biden and his team in. Every single person who's been appointed is political. They've all worked on campaigns. They've all advised campaigns. They've all held political appointments. There's simply no way that you can say that. And actually, George Stephanopoulos, not calling her on that, George Stephanopoulos worked 8 years in the Clinton White House. He's political. It's kind of through the looking glass. My colleagues at MSNBC, Yamiche Alcindor and Andrea Mitchell, did pretty much the same thing. Here's Andrea Mitchell, cut number 8.
They are now being told that it is not going to be political. And Joe Biden is saying, these are people, this is a team who's going to tell me, this team will tell me what I need to know, not what I want to know. That is a big change.
All right. So again, Andrea likes this. She's friends with all of them. I've met Tony Blinken before at the Aspen Security Forum, which has become sort of the ongoing wake for the JCPOA. And Andrea likes these appointments, and she is a longtime insider inside of Washington. So she does. Yamiche Alcindor is a newcomer inside Washington on MSNBC with Nicole Wallace. And she went way over the top, and I like Yamiche. I've done a lot of TV with Yamiche, but again, she's supposed to be a reporter, not a fan club, cut number 6.
That's right. And in just saying that they're going to do their jobs and be good stewards of America's role in this world and focus on American diplomacy, that in and of itself, being a rebuke of President Trump is underscores what we've all been living through in the last 4 years, which is a president who wanted to be more isolationist, who wanted to pull back. What we saw today, I was sitting in that room in Wilmington. I was thinking about the fact that Joe Biden, in some ways, for supporters, is fulfilling the promises that he made on the campaign trail. He said he wanted to have a cabinet that looked like America. And there were people there on that stage, of course, talking about all of their different accolades and their experience, but they were also talking about their families who survived the Holocaust, who survived coming from Cuba and fleeing communists, who talked about having gumbo diplomacy, cooking Southern food, as the United Nations ambassador was saying. All of those things are what America's about. It's this melting pot. The other thing I'll just say is I was talking to a Democrat who just said this also felt like the Avengers. It felt like we're being rescued from this craziness that we've all lived through from the last 4 years. And now here are the superheroes to come and save us all.
Do you feel that way? I mean, they're all center-left mainstream people. They are longtime members of the Beltway establishment, the foreign policy elite. They're all credentialed to the extent that they need confirmation. They will all be easily confirmed. I've said that. I don't think anyone's going to vote against Janet Yellen or Tony Blinken. But the Avengers, really? The apolitical, really? These are very political, liberal left-wingers. And if they stay away from Iran and they are honest about China, I'll have no problem with them. If they go back to the foreign policy consensus of the Clinton years, modified by realism about China, I'll applaud them. The Iran deal was a nightmare. They tried very hard, but now we have peace in the Middle East, engineered by Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo and Robert O'Brien and Jared Kushner. We've got Israel meeting with the Saudi Arabia king, Netanyahu, and the Crown Prince meeting in Saudi Arabia. We've got Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates and Sudan in accords, the Abraham Accords with Israel. Do we keep that going? Are we going to keep the embassy in Jerusalem? Are we going to recognize the annexation of the Golan Heights? No one is getting asked difficult questions, and it's back to the future. Remember the Obama press conferences where President Obama never got a tough question? We're going back to softball. After a year, it wasn't hardball, it was throw at the head with Donald Trump for 4 years. And journalists they're not journalists. Look, everybody is a partisan. I'm a partisan, I'm a Republican. Everybody is a partisan. Can we please just recognize that everybody is a partisan? And when you say it's Avengers Assemble, that's partisan. When you say they're not political, that's partisan. When you say they've all served a long time, that's a partisan comment. Everybody's got a point of view, and that's okay. I'm not upset with that. Let's be honest about it. So my question going into hour 2 on the Thanksgiving Eve show, do you expect the media, do you expect the Beltway Manhattan media elite to cover President-elect Joe Biden fairly? 1-800-520-1234. I really want to know what you think. 1-800-520-1234 connects you to the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Prison Fellowship. Click on the Angel Tree banner at the top of HughHewitt.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Can we talk about Cortez? Yes, let's talk about AOC. Your response, you have been hitting hard with your amazing videos, the insanity of political correctness of cancel culture. Does cancel culture, Is it adequate enough a phrase when we're talking about AOC tweeting out that it's time to make lists of Trump supporters?
Okay, tag me in, Sebi. Can I go off? Tag me in, can I?
You can go off.
Yes, okay. First of all, I don't take her that seriously because let's be real, I don't think she can read that well to be making any lists I'd be worried about. Plus, she is the dumbest human being I've ever met or seen on the internet. I haven't met her. She's so stupid. She probably thinks that COVID-19 is Elon Musk's new kid. She is so stupid. She thinks that Pfizer is a mumble rapper and we need to learn his TikTok dances. AOC is so dumb. She thinks that the Bitcoin bull run is an actual event and we need to save the bulls. I don't know how to process her level of stupid, so I just laugh at her.
Those are some good lines. Look, she is risible. She is funny. I'm not sure those are the coolest dance moves I've ever seen.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
A woman who treats developmentally disabled patients. She said, I haven't been able to see my patients in person since March because of the virus. But right after the election, one of my clients said that he voted for Biden but didn't want to. He told me that he said Biden won because Biden would make his Social Security payments go down. He was sad that Biden won. I asked him why he voted for Biden, if he was worried about that, and he said that one of the helpers just came in and filled out his ballot for Biden for him. Bombshell voter fraud revelation in Wisconsin, to the best of our knowledge or the intelligence we have provided, no FBI investigation, no DOJ investigation. This is News Talk's 1130.iheart.com. Disability Service Coordinator blows whistle on vote fraud in group homes called granny farming. We have long been talking about that here, which would correlate with the 1,774% increase that we saw for people over the age of 90 registering during a pandemic in battleground states. So Rudy Giuliani laid out 9 key points. The first of which was observers were allegedly prevented from watching mail-in ballots from being open. This is the easiest point to prove of all the different allegations out there, and it's unconstitutional. Giuliani said that many mail-in ballots were opened without observers being able to check that they were properly signed, a key protection against fraud. Those votes, he said, were, quote, null and void, especially where the envelopes had been discarded, making recounts useless.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Dennis Prager Show.
All right, let's begin with Jamie in Freehold, New Jersey. The famous Jamie of Freehold. Hello.
How are you today? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
So, I'm 46 years old. I just have to say that I discovered you about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the happiness hour makes my week.
I love that.
I literally look forward to you singing
the
original lyrics.
I love you for that. No, the original lyrics line. You cracked me up.
The original lyrics.
Yes,
yeah.
every
anyway,
week.
I recently, yes, absolutely. When I miss it, I'm unhappy.
Gotcha.
So I recently started smoking cigars, and I was just curious, very simply, what's your favorite cigar and why?
So I have a number of answers to that, and even though 98% of you don't smoke cigars, you should still be interested in the question because it's philosophic. It's not just cigars, and I'll explain why. So I have two answers, and one is if I were to ask you what is your favorite food, would you have an answer?
No, because I have multiple.
Oh, that's my answer on cigars.
So if you were in a jolly good mood in front of one of your fireside chats, what's one that you'd go to?
All right. So now it's not one. There is a generic type that I tend to love.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Now, I just was reading some other news as I was getting ready for the show today. Johnson & Johnson, which has not been mentioned in the equation. It's all been Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical giant, is going to seek FDA authorization for their vaccine. And their vaccine is a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. And it looks like it might be February or sooner. We are likely weeks away from sort of going in an entirely different direction and getting closer to putting this behind us. Remember when Brett Baer used to say we're one day closer to this end of coronavirus? We need it. We need it. I know there's lots of arguing and anger and frustration over the election. There should be. We knew all along, all of us knew that when you're encouraging millions and millions of people to mail in ballots because of COVID, that there was a real strong potential for, I don't know, the 27 toss-up races to all be won by Republicans down ballot, but Trump couldn't quite hold off, couldn't quite pull it off. Yeah, right. Biden got 10 million more votes than Barack Obama did. Yeah, right. Americans are not stupid. We're not blind. And we may be frustrated right now, and we may be stressed, and we may be prepared for whatever comes our way. We're going to persevere.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I hope you're all off to grandmother's house in a pod that is safe. I'm celebrating with you Operation Warp Speed. I talked to my family toxicologist, the PhD scientist who has for 45 years developed drugs. Couldn't stop singing the praises of Operation Warp Speed. Never seen anything like it in his 45 years. It's a history of science moment, both scientifically and logistically. I asked him, when do you expect to have the drug available or a vaccine available, one of the three, to everyone in America who wants it? By the end of March. When do you expect every medical professional, frontline first responder to have it? By the end of December. So we're breaking the back of it. Operation Warp Speed is an enormous success. Kudos to Donald Trump, Vice President Pence, every member of the task force, Tony Fauci, Deborah Birx, every scientist at Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and every other scientist around the world who collaborated with them. It's a huge win for the world. And that's why stocks took off to 30,000 on the Dow yesterday. Let me do a quick market update brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Andrew and Todd are my friends. I sent a note off to Andrew yesterday about reverse mortgages. I've got a friend who wants to take all their money out of their paid-off house and buy another house, which is actually not a bad idea. Because once you get a reverse mortgage, you're just basically taking the equity out of your house and you never make another mortgage payment. It's not a mortgage. A reverse mortgage is the opposite of a mortgage. You take money out, you don't put money in. It's available for people who have equity in their houses who are 62 and on their principal residence. It's kind of magic for people if it's what you need. Do you need it? Well, you need to call Andrew and Todd at 888-888-1172. They were Sierra Pacific, but it's better to go to their website, AndrewandTodd.com. Answer a couple of questions. You can tell them you're looking at reverse mortgages. For example, you're 62 years old, you've got a paid-off house, you want some money to invest to help your kids buy a house or to buy a vacation home that you've always wanted. Or you can call them at 888-888-1172. The Dow hit 30,000 yesterday. And so I was reading the financial news this morning at Yahoo, and everybody knows I always disclose because of conflict of interest. The only stock I own is Amazon. Everything else is mutual funds. And I see over at Yahoo, is Amazon a good stock to buy according to hedge funds? And in fact, it is owned by 245 hedge funds. It is the most popular stock among hedge funds. That is one of the reasons why I own it. I'm not smart enough to cover the stock market and politics and national security and the news. I can't do it all. That's why Jim Cramer has his own show. It's why we specialize. I do politics, national security, and the Cleveland Browns, Indians, and Cavaliers, and Ohio State football. But I do know when smart people do something, do what they do. Now, I also have to tell you my weakness, because it happened again last night. Everybody has a weakness, right? Here's mine. If you're watching on YouTube, there it is. You see the deadly box. The gingerbread people. It's really terrible. Gingerbread cookies with white fudge icing. Every year at this time, Trader Joe's ruins every New Year's resolution before it begins. They're banned from the house, but the fetching Mrs. Hewitt always brings home one box of the gingerbread people. And they're mini gingerbread cookies. And are you searching for treats your guests will adore? Well, this box contains exactly what you're looking for. These spicy gingerbread cookies will delight with the familiar cookie shape sure to excite, blah, blah, blah. They're addictive. It's the crack cocaine of cookies. And I want you to know, they don't tell you. They say, oh, calories 150. You know what that serving is? 4. Nobody eats 4 of the gingerbread people. Nobody. So I wanted you to see. Away with you. Yeah, I ate them all, but no more. No more. That's my paean to resolution before Thanksgiving. Now, I asked a question before you went to break. You heard Martha Raddatz, Andrea Mitchell. You heard Yamiche Alcindor. Do you think the media is going to cover President-elect Biden's foreign policy the way that they've covered Donald Trump? Michael in Dallas, Texas. Hi, Michael. Good Texas Thanksgiving to you.
You too. Happy Thanksgiving. And
Thank you.
To answer your question quickly, no, they're not going to cover it fairly any more than any other major subject. Pick any one. But I wanted to comment about, in the last hour, we were talking about you and Tucker, urging people to come out and vote in the Georgia election, which of course is important. But I just find that he and you and really most commentators are missing the fundamental question is coming out to vote is utterly irrelevant if we don't have honest, safe elections, and it appears to me we don't. People came out and vote earlier this month, and what did it matter? Multiple battleground states were robbed in front of our eyes.
Michael, can I interrupt you? I have to interrupt you. That's not true. And so I appreciate the call, but we're not going to do that on this show. I'm not going to let you. I'll give you the floor back, but I'm not going to let you make a false assertion. The election was not stolen. The election was fairly waged. We lost. I'm deeply disappointed. Deeply disappointed.
Okay.
It was
right.
not stolen.
All right. Okay, Hugh. I've never been on show. Can I just say, look, I'm a medical scientist. I deal with facts and data, and also when you do not allow observers to come in and view the count, and you close up the windows, and you have numbers that do not add up. Now that we all saw that the observers.
Okay, Michael, I've given you enough time. I know what you're saying. I read it. It's on the right wing, far right wing sites. It's not true, so I have to say goodbye and happy Thanksgiving. I'm not going to do it. There is no conspiracy. There was no stealing of the election. We lost the election, and it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. There is no Sidney Powell, crazy left-wing, right-wing conspiracy machine built for Nicolas Maduro and Hugo Chavez that took over the voting machines. That did not happen. There is fraud in every election, every single one. I wrote the book. If it's not close, they cannot cheat. What is being suggested is not true. It is not true. And please don't call and tell me that. I'm asking you what you think is going to happen going forward. And so please, I mean, there are people that will entertain you and will let you say that without challenge. Not me. My credibility depends upon reading everything and studying everything and listening to everything. And I will read any complaint. And there isn't one that has had standing in the federal courts. There are 38 different lawsuits, 2 of which I believe are still extant, none of which challenges a sufficient number of votes to overturn the election in even one state. I am open-minded. That is not true. Brett in Columbus, Ohio. Good morning, Brett.
Morning, sir. Happy Thanksgiving.
And to you.
So the whole softball question thing on Biden, I believe it'll probably go that way, but I don't remember if it was your show or maybe Prager's or Gorka's or something like that, but it was a broadcast, and there was a thing set up for what they thought that could possibly happen and might very well happen is that the whole administration that they have now, that their plan might have been to have Kamala Harris take over in about 2 years and 5 days, just so she could actually spend 2.5 terms in office.
Yeah, I read again. That's not going to happen. I pray for the health of the president.
If it was, I mean, wouldn't you think that if they were going to do that, you'd already start seeing like hardball questions thrown at him?
Yes, and I just don't think I see so much. The internet has done a terrible thing. It's poisoned the water. It really has poisoned the water. And I invented complaining about liberal media. I really did. But now the internet has allowed conspiracy theories to run amok. And there is no plan to push Joe Biden aside because of the 25th Amendment and put Kamala Harris in after 2 years and 5 days so she can serve 10 years. There is no such plan. What this is a traditional left-wing liberal group of people coming in with their traditional left, and we have to keep our eye on the ball, which is we can't let them go back to the Iran deal. We have to make sure they're serious about China. We have to protect America. We have to hold the Georgia Senate seat. Brett, do you agree with that?
I do agree with that. I agree with all. I just wanted to see what your thoughts might have been on that, if you thought that was even true. I mean, at some particular point in time, the way things were going, it didn't feel like it was so untrue, but yet if it was, I would have thought already you might have heard them.
Right. It's completely untrue. And you're right. They would be peppering, they'd be trying to show Joe had to go. But it's just lunacy. People, just stick with me. I've been doing this for 30 years. I've never voted for a Democrat except Bernie Sanders in the Virginia primary because I wanted him to run the Democratic Party so they would fly the flag of socialism. It's an open primary. It's legal. It wasn't a trick. But I've worked for every Republican presidential campaign since Jerry Ford to get them elected on air or in person. I didn't do it in '84 because I was barred by the Hatch Act. But honest to goodness, don't believe the nuttery. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
All right, let's begin with Jamie in Freehold, New Jersey. The famous Jamie of Freehold. Hello.
How are you today? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
So, I'm 46 years old. I just have to say that I discovered you about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the happiness hour makes my week.
I love that.
I literally look forward to you singing the original lyrics.
I love you for that. No, the original lyrics line. You cracked me up.
The original lyrics.
Yes,
yeah.
every
anyway,
week.
I recently, yes, absolutely. When I miss it, I'm unhappy.
Gotcha.
So I recently started smoking cigars, and I was just curious, very simply, what's your favorite cigar and why?
So I have a number of answers to that, and even though 98% of you don't smoke cigars, you should still be interested in the question because it's philosophic. It's not just cigars, and I'll explain why. So I have two answers, and one is if I were to ask you what is your favorite food, would you have an answer?
No, because I have multiple.
Oh, that's my answer on cigars.
So if you were in a jolly good mood in front of one of your fireside chats, what's one that you'd go to?
All right. So now it's not one. There is a generic type that I tend to love.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Now, I just was reading some other news as I was getting ready for the show today. Johnson & Johnson, which has not been mentioned in the equation. It's all been Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical giant, is going to seek FDA authorization for their vaccine. And their vaccine is a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. And it looks like it might be February or sooner. We are likely weeks away from sort of going in an entirely different direction and getting closer to putting this behind us. Remember when Brett Baer used to say we're one day closer to this end of coronavirus? We need it. We need it. I know there's lots of arguing and anger and frustration over the election. There should be. We knew all along, all of us knew that when you're encouraging millions and millions of people to mail in ballots because of COVID, that there was a real strong potential for, I don't know, the 27 toss-up races to all be won by Republicans down ballot, but Trump couldn't quite hold off, couldn't quite pull it off. Yeah, right. Biden got 10 million more votes than Barack Obama did. Yeah, right. Americans are not stupid. We're not blind. And we may be frustrated right now, and we may be stressed, and we may be prepared for whatever comes our way. We're going to persevere.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Who do you think gave the high sign or made the plan behind the scenes what to do on election night? These are people. This wasn't an algorithm. Who do you suppose are the mandarins of power on the Democratic side who made these decisions?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of different working theories here, and I think they all might have some.
So, welcome back. Hugh Hewitt inside the Beltway. Lots going on here. But first, I want to tell you about the Wild Adventure, TWA.us, because people are doing Christmas shopping right now. And I've gone to Montana 3 or 4 times on the Wild Adventure. I guess it's 3 times. Dwayne's gone there. It is a great week of fishing for men. and fellowship and friendship and great food, and it's in the most beautiful. If you watch Yellowstone, Yellowstone's got nothing on the wild adventure. And it also changes lives. Let's listen to, who is this? Henry Min.
Henry Min.
Where are you from, Henry?
I'm from Collegeville, Pennsylvania, suburban Philadelphia.
Really?
Yes.
And where are you now?
I'm in the middle of nowhere, Montana.
What are you doing there?
I'm having a great time meeting with some of the most honorable and decent men I've ever been around in my life.
Really? Yes. So, how'd you hear about this?
My wife surprised me with it. As a matter of fact, when Mike called me, I had no idea. I'm like, who the hell are you and why are you calling me? I was originally supposed to come next year, but there was an opening and they called me, and that was kind of why that was a surprise.
And what did your wife, what happened?
She listens to you.
Hugh Hewitt?
Much more than I do, so she heard about this. I had never heard your thing on it, so.
She said, you're going to camp, and you said the...
All right, I'm in.
You did?
Yes.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yes.
Sort of like when your wife says, we need to go to counseling. The only answer you can say is, all right.
All right.
Even if you think that's a bunch of...
Right.
Well, so were you a little worried what you're coming to?
I was.
You'd be crazy if you weren't.
I was. And, but as it got closer and I read the book, and I told you it didn't really resonate with me, but I said, you know what, I will commit fully to this. I will do everything I can to get the most out of it, no matter what that is. And I just kind of put the trust in the Lord and went with it.
And so, have you ever been on anything like this before?
No, never.
And how was it?
It was one of the best experiences of my life.
Wow, that's quite a statement. Nobody's paying you to say that, are they?
No. And, the fishing is just, beyond description. And then to be around these guys was just icing on the cake.
So you said it was one of the great experiences of your life. Why?
Because it was so real. And I got to be around some guys that struggle just like the rest of us do. And, you're not alone. And so everybody's got their issues and their problems. It doesn't matter who you are. And I think that's the great equalizer in life. And the answer, obviously, is Christ. And I think renewed my spirit, renewed my thinking about how to approach some things. And
that's huge.
Giving me some time to think about and start to listen.
That's huge. Yeah. Well, my prayer for you is that you go back and you find a couple guys who you can bring next year so you can talk on this same level with. Because if you start talking to guys like this right away, you'll be drinking along the rest of your life.
I'm already trying to figure this out. I got folks at work, folks, neighborhoods, all want to know what the hell happened in Montana, and am I going to come back like a different guy, like something happened to me? But so it's going to be interesting how to explain this.
Cool. Great to have you with us, man.
Thank you so much.
You bet.
So
I don't know Henry. I hope he's listening. His wife may be listening. I tell everyone, if you want the greatest week of your life, head up to Montana, the wild adventure, even if you can't fish a lick. Now, I've fished out the river a couple of times, and they banned me from the Madison because I just depopulated so much of the Goldens. And I mean, 14, 16 inches is a good, normal day. I'm not bragging or anything. It's just what it is. But you ought to look TWA.us. TWA.us. The problem is they only have 12 weeks or 13 weeks. Only 12 guys can go at a time. Costs a couple of grand. But Jan Chanura subsidizes every single person. Go look at it. Give it a shot. Dwayne will confirm. It's just a wonderful one. It's the best Christmas present you can give your husband.
14-inch fish? Do you know what we call 14-inch fish?
What?
Bait.
Yeah, okay, well, yeah, there you go. Dwayne couldn't catch one. He fell in the river twice. I wasn't going to bring that up, but I was going to just say, I wasn't there with him, but I got the pictures. I just want to tell you, it's a great place to go. TWA.us. TWA.us. If you want to give the president of a life and, your husband or your son-in-law or your son will open this up and they'll say, what is this? And just say, go to the website, TWA.us. You're going on next week. I paid for it. You'll love it. And they'll kick her or whatever. They'll do it. Come right back. Congressman Mike Gallagher is joining me next on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of The Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Prison Fellowship. Click on the Angel Tree banner at the top of HughHewitt.com.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Restrictions starting today. Gyms, movie theaters, churches can no longer meet indoors. As a result of the emergency orders, 41 of California's 58 counties are now in what's called purple tier status, and that is Newsom's strictest category. He's also considering instituting a statewide curfew. Meanwhile, the governor attended a dinner party at an upscale French restaurant and had more than the 10 people that he is saying that you can only have when you are in some sort of social gathering. And he's put out a statement saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize it. We're all gonna do better."
And as soon as I sat down at the larger table, I realized it was a little larger group than I had anticipated.
And he started counting them: 1, 2, 3, 4. And maybe he didn't realize that he had exceeded the number. First, he sends his children to in-person private school while attacking school choice and keeping public schools closed throughout California. Now he attends a private gathering while telling Californians to do otherwise.
Got to own that. And so I want to apologize to you because I need to preach and practice, not just preach.
Sacramento Bee editorial board, quote, "If Newsom can't get his head into the game, perhaps he should make the governor thing a one-term affair and leave the job open for someone with a desire to lead," end of quote. You know, he told you not to have a gathering of more than 10 people. He exceeded that, but spiritually he didn't exceed it. He may have exceeded it physically.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
What did you think of the press conference yesterday? Are you satisfied in general by the campaign's response and by the conservative response to what we witnessed 2 weeks ago on election night?
Well, here's what we have to understand as a predicate. If we allow fraud to continue, if we turn a blind eye to it, if we accept the proposition that any accusation of fraud or any query of ballots cast is racist or an attack on democracy itself, then we as conservatives will never win another election again. Because in some of these, very densely populated cities, you have a feature that I like to call ballot laundering, where people didn't actually intend to vote those ballots those particular ways. There was just a mechanized system to request ballots, submit those ballots, and then have people count them in the absence of review, authentication, validity. And my concern is that while the campaign is doing everything they can and should after the fact to expose this, we should have caught it in the act, Dr.
Yes.
Gorka.
Yes.
We should have had U.S. attorneys on the ground ready to enforce injunctions, ready to demand that the law be complied with, because here's the problem. Every remedy that Mayor Giuliani is requesting in legal proceedings requires the disqualification of pools of ballots that have both legal and potentially illegal ballots.
Right, the commingled ballots.
Exactly. So, I do not see any path to a judge excluding commingled ballots. But I am very concerned about the fraud that happened. We know it happened.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined by Congressman Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin's 1st Congressional District. Good morning, Congressman. How are you?
Good morning, Hugh. It's great to be with you.
Happy Thanksgiving to you. I have to move quickly today because we're jammed up, but I want to ask you first, do the Republicans anticipate 212, 213, or 214 members in the new Congress?
Two are soon to tell. I mean, it's pretty remarkable that I think 212 is the floor, and you look at just the narrow margin that Pelosi has to pass anything. I mean, she can basically only lose 4 critical votes, and that includes the votes for Speaker, where you actually have to physically sit in the House chamber. You have to stand up and vote by voice for Speaker. And I don't think it's a given that every single member of the Democratic Party right now in the House is going to vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. So I don't think that's as shored up as people might think it is.
Do committees balance out to just a 1-vote difference when the House is this closely divided?
Well, what happens is Pelosi and McCarthy will negotiate the ratios on the committees. So some will have a narrow 1-vote difference. Some will have a wider vote difference, but they have yet to sort of make that ratio agreement. And so, until they have those ratios complete, we won't have assignments for various committees. And the freshmen that have just come in, and we have a very strong freshman class right now, are making their arguments for, I want to be on this committee or that committee. But we need to know how many additional seats we're getting on each committee before we can slot members in that place. And then, of course, there's various races within the Republican caucus for ranking member positions, who basically is going to be the top Republican on various committees and subcommittees. But until we have the overall ratios, we're not able to do that.
The reason I ask this is that oversight is going to matter so much with the President-elect Biden, and especially on China and Iran. I've said about his team of Anthony Blinken and Jake Sullivan and others that they are mainstream left liberal. They're longtime Beltway, Manhattan, foreign policy, national security elites. I'm afraid they're going to revert to the Iran deal. I'm afraid they're going to be soft on China, but I'm going to give them a chance to prove me wrong. What is your assessment?
Well, look at just yesterday, Chinese state media encouraged the Biden team to focus on climate change and racial injustice. They've said they're going to make those issues a focus. And I think in a lot of ways, this is going to be the primary rift in administration between advisors whose primary challenge is as transnational, and therefore we need to pursue cooperation with states like China and Russia, or that our adversaries are primarily state-based, and so the problem is China and Russia themselves. And I think this is an open question, and even if it's for the wrong reasons, I'm glad to see Democrats have seen Vladimir Putin's Russia as a big challenge, but it remains to be seen if they have a similar reckoning on China. So we shall see. And just to your point about the Iran deal, are going to try and put the Iran deal back together with duct tape as some sort of nod to our European allies. Well, it's impossible to build upon the success of the Abraham Accords in the Middle East if you go back into the Iran deal, which increases the likelihood that the Middle East is going to grow chaotic. And so any effort to, dare I say, pivot to the Pacific will run aground, because the administration will find itself having to deal with challenges and chaos instigated by Iran in the Middle East. And so the irony will be that the Biden grand strategy will suffer the same misguided fate that Obama's grand did, which is to say, when he tried to pivot to the Pacific, because he got the basic alliance structure you're wrong in the middle, incoherent and a strategic policy that simply did not work.
Now, your internet is terrible again, Gallagher, because Wisconsin apparently has hamsters running their electricity grid. But I want to stay with you for one more question.
They're on hamster wheels.
The incoming President-elect's team voiced some question about selling F-35s to the United Arab Emirates. That is in our interest. We have to do that. Can they stop that? Or will that sale be completed already? Or do the jets have to be produced and they'll have the opportunity to stop it when they take office?
Well, you should note that this is Ilhan Omar's pet policy position. I mean, she is the one largely advocated for cutting off the sale of F-35s to the UAE. UAE, Little Sparta, a critical component of our traditional alliance bloc in the middle way in which we achieve a semblance of stability in a chaotic region. So I think this would be misguided. To your question, certainly on the Senate side, any individual senator has the ability to slow down significantly and perhaps stop indefinitely an arms sale, particularly if they sit on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, which is why it's critically important that the Senate remains in the damage that will be done if the Senate is a 50-50 tie goes to the Democrat composition, just because there's all these little things that happen behind the scenes at level, like arms sales that are
unfortunately
foreign policy.
Mike, we're not hearing you, so I gotta say goodbye. We're getting like every fourth word, which is what it's like watching the Packers play. 3 and out. You know, you get 3 minutes and then you're out. So have a great Thanksgiving. Try and get the internet repaired. You guys are just, we need some. I know you can wear your Packers gear, but if you can't talk, you can't do radio. It's like the Wisconsin connection. We're going back to telephone with you next week, Gallagher. Thank you, my friend. Happy
I'm
Thanksgiving.
being canceled.
I don't understand why Wisconsin doesn't have internet. It's terrible. When he's in town, we're able to talk to him on Skype, but when he's in Wisconsin, we can't do that. It's a terrible, terrible thing. Let me tell everyone about AndrewandTodd.com. We hit 30,000 points on the Dow yesterday. The greatest achievement in the Dow's history. And the NASDAQ also went up 156 points, and the S&P went up 57. Overseas this morning, Andrew and Todd, by the way, great sponsors of the show, AndrewandTodd.com. They are lenders. They lend you money to refinance your home or buy a home or help your son or daughter, grandson or granddaughter get into a home, to do a reverse mortgage. If you're a veteran, they'll do 0% down loans. They do conforming loans and jumbo. They do it all, and they're the best at it. All you have to do is go to AndrewandTodd.com, 2 D's and Todd, answer a couple of questions. They'll tell you what is the best deal for you. But you can call them at 888-888-1172. They're working today on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. So call them today. Get in line because the 10-year Treasury has ticked up to 0.88%. The price of oil is at $45 a barrel. Gold has gone up this morning to $18.11. What I see is so much money sloshing around in the system that as soon as those vaccines make it, and the Washington Post is reporting that 40 million doses of the vaccine will be out in the marketplace covering first responders by the end of December. My family toxicologist, the retired PhD, says he expects everyone who wants a dose to be able to get a dose by the end of March. That's a little more aggressive than the Post is reporting, but he actually has been in the business for 45 years, so he knows how distribution works. A logistical and scientific achievement without parallel. So yes, the markets are going to be frothy. They're going to be very excited. All of it, every sector, because we're going back to business in America and around the world. But the interest rates are still low. Take advantage of that opportunity. Go to AndrewandTodd.com. Also, if you're feeling cheery, do me a favor, please. Go to HughHewitt.com and contribute to our friends at Angel Tree. Angel Tree really does need your help. Angel Tree is the charity of Prison Fellowship, the ministry of Prison Fellowship, that goes and delivers presents from prisoners to the children they cannot see on Christmas. Then they establish a relationship with that child and they try and fill in, and they often do fill in. They help that child navigate life without one or both parents because they are in jail. You know, I told you I was watching The Queen's Gambit last night. It begins with the terrible scene of a child orphan. Well, children who have mom and dad in jail aren't orphaned, but they are denied the presence of that parent. And it's tough. It's really hard. Angel Tree steps in, keeps those parents and children connected, provides Christmas presents, scripture, notes from the parents, ministry throughout the year. That's why I'm asking you, if you can give $220, you'll serve 10 children via Angel Tree. If you will give $2,000, you'll serve 100 kids. It is really up to you. And if you have a widow's mite, if you're stuck and you can't do much, $22 is fine. You will take care of one child. And the angels will see and the angels will celebrate, because that which is done in quiet, you don't let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. Just go to Angel Tree Banner at HughHewitt.com and be as generous as possible. Jim Talon is coming up. Before he does, I want to remind everyone in Georgia, you can register to vote until December the 7th. You really have got very little time. If you didn't vote in the general election for Donald Trump or Joe Biden, you may not be registered. You got to get registered. You may not move to Georgia for the purposes of voting. That's a felony. But if you're in Georgia, and I cover the state, Savannah and Macon, of course, Atlanta on 720, The Answer. I'm all over Georgia. I'm in the south out of Jacksonville. I'm in the north, all across the borders. I just need you to get registered and get your church family members to get registered. Get out there and be part of the solution. Donald Trump gave a presser yesterday, by the way. Cut number 10. I want you to hear this. Cut number 10. Apparently
Thank
they're
you
not.
very much, and I just want to congratulate everybody. The stock market, Dow Jones Industrial Average, just hit 30,000, which is the highest in history. We've never broken 30,000, and that's just despite everything that's taken place with the pandemic. I'm very thrilled with what's happened on the vaccine front. That's been absolutely incredible. It's nothing like that has ever happened medically, and I think people are acknowledging that, and it's having a big effect. But the stock market's just broken 30,000. Never been broken, that number. That's a sacred number, 30,000. Nobody thought they'd ever see it. That's the 9th time since the beginning of 2020, and it's the 48th time that we've broken records during the Trump administration. And I just want to congratulate all the people within the administration that work so hard. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the people of our country, because there are no people like you. Thank you very much, everybody.
I love that press conference. Rob in Cleveland, Ohio. Good morning, Rob. How are you?
I'm great, Hugh. Happy Thanksgiving.
And to you, sir.
Yeah, I wanted to look forward and affirmative. And that caller earlier about fraud kind of ticked me off. How are we going to restore the confidence of people like that in Georgia so they get out and vote in droves?
That's why I wrote the Washington Post column this morning. We've got to turn out Georgia. They've got to believe their vote counts. It does count. And if we lose the Senate, we lose the judiciary. If we lose the judiciary, it's just incredible to me that people are bad-mouthing voting right now. We've got to win those races.
We have to really announce how scrutinized this election is going to be. And there are going to be eyes all over every ballot.
Yes, you're right. Rob, thank you. You are absolutely right. I appreciate that call. Gotta vote. I appreciate people who get relieffactor.com as well. They are great sponsors of the program. And that means I am able to come to you with sweet reason every morning and encourage Georgia voters to vote, and encourage you to exercise, walk, run, lift weights, do whatever you do. Go to Peloton. I know Peloton's had like the greatest year ever because people are staying home and they can't go to gyms. Whatever you're doing, you need relieffactor.com in your life. By carrying Kirkman Resveratrol Omega. Go out and get it. $19.95 is a starter pack. $19.95 gets you going. $19.95 makes you feel better every day, no matter how you're exercising, no matter how old you're getting. Help yourself. Get to good health. relieffactor.com. Jim Talon is next, America. Stay tuned. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you in part by Prison Fellowship. Click on the Angel Tree banner at the top of HughHewitt.com.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
And I hope that this does not explode to the volcanic expectations that I have. And it's actually, I'm unbelievably worried where this is going. Because normal people, regular Americans, are not going to tolerate what is happening right now in our country. And what's happening is the widespread criminality from within our own government. That's where things start to get very, very dangerous. And normal people and regular people that work their tail off to do the right thing, to not even get parking tickets, to not even get speeding, to people that follow the law, they see this Nevada cash for vote scheme. They see the granny farming that whistleblowers have now said exists in in Wisconsin. They see the piles of dead voters that allegedly voted in these states. They see the 1,774% increase for older people, that 90-plus-year-olds that register to vote in Pennsylvania, most of which register to vote online. You're right. They see the National Democrat Party suggesting re-education camps for Trump supporters. They see the New York Times article that says, reach out to Trump supporters, I try. They also then see the candidate that they voted for, Donald Trump. What are they saying on the front page of the New York Times? That he might go to prison as soon as he's done with his term. Playing with fire, everybody. It's not good.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined by former Senator Jim Talent. Jim, I got to cover two things with you quickly this morning. I wrote a column in the Washington Post, it'll be on the landing page later, about how important it is for Mitch McConnell to be majority leader in order to save the judiciary from radicals. Am I right?
Oh, absolutely. Because I think he's proven he knows how to handle the confirmation process in a way that will benefit the courts and the people. I think he's the best majority leader we've had since Bob Dole, and probably as good or better than Bob Dole. So, yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Now, but the ability to bottle up the most radical President-elect Biden nominees in judiciary is what I write about, and that is legitimate, and I think that's going to happen if the leader remains in control.
Yeah, I think so, too. As a matter of fact, what will happen, I think they'll work into a situation where Biden doesn't nominate. In other words, it constrains a little bit who he nominates in the first place, if it's handled correctly, and I think Lindsey Graham will handle it correctly. So you're right, and I think it will also ensure the kind of searching examination we need of some of these executive branch appointees, in particular in foreign policy. And I loved your questions to Mike Gallagher. I wish we could have had the answers.
Yeah,
but I like the questions. Hey, you, can I just?
That's where I was going next.
I would ask Tony Blinken. Here's the question I would ask Tony Blinken. And I would say, look, if you don't answer this question correctly or answer it intelligently, I'm not voting for you. And it's this, okay? How can you continue the Abraham Accords unless constraining Iran is your top priority in the Middle East? How can you constrain Iran without the sanctions? And how can you continue the sanctions if you reinstate the JCPOA? And I'd say if you don't answer that question, and I don't mean a lot of gobbledygook, okay, I'm not voting for you because I'm not voting for somebody who's going to scrap the most successful Middle Eastern policy in 20 years just because it was Donald Trump's policy. And it's as simple as that.
Do you think there's a danger they will reject? I mean, it's a huge breakthrough. The Abraham Accords are the most significant development in the Middle East in 40 years.
Right. And at least since the end of the collapse of the talks at the end of the Clinton administration, at least 20, and you're right, probably 40 years. I think there is, because they said they want to reimpose the JCPOA, and you can't do that without lifting the sanctions. And if you lift the sanctions, the whole coalition falls apart. I mean, I think at best we become irrelevant in the Middle East at that point.
What about the F-35s to the United Arab Emirates, Jim Talent? I think that is a critical part of the whole mosaic of what's going on.
Yes. I mean, the broader strategic issue here is that what Trump did was reconstruct the partnership with the Gulf states, as well as Jordan, Egypt, and of course, Israel, on the basis of which the Middle East is managed and we can have some kind of peace in the Middle East. So you have to sustain that partnership, which, includes the UAE, and that includes appropriate kinds of sales of arms, et cetera. It's all part of a broader strategy,
Jim,
which
can
Obama
we do this?
scrapped when he did the JCPOA.
Remember the FDR-Churchill destroyer deal? Remember what we did there? Can the United States fly however many F-35s we currently have in the inventory to UAE, let them take delivery of those, and then back order what we need?
Well, yeah, I think they could probably find a way to do this, but the issue is if you have an incoming administration that's going to be hostile to the underlying strategy, on the basis of which we have this policy, the policy's in trouble. I mean, this is why you have to, during the confirmation process, ask Tony Blinken. You have to push him hard on this. And it's not partisanship. It's just if they're going to dump this policy just because it was Trump's policy, okay, then we don't need him as Secretary of State. I would really push hard on that issue, and it'll matter if Jim Risch is the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee.
Now, I understand your point of view, but I want to go back because I'm an incrementalist. I think it matters to deterring Iran a lot if those F-35s get to UAE.
Sure.
Has it ever happened that we've just taken inventory that we possess? I mean, the Air Force will go nuts, right? Everyone will go crazy if we take 40 F-35s out of the inventory, but we can replace them if they get there, right?
Well, one question I would ask you, I mean, in order to answer that, on the legal issue, I don't know whether all the T's have been crossed and the I's have been dotted legally. We don't always sell the same variants. There are some things that we withhold, even from countries like Japan, as you know. So I just don't know whether our inventory F-35s are the kind we intend to sell to UAE. I don't know whether what all the legalities are and whether they can get them all done before the end of the year.
To me, it's so vital to keep the Abraham Accord alliance together. There's a reason Netanyahu went and saw the Crown Prince with Mike Pompeo. I mean, it's amazing.
It's an incredible breakthrough, and it occurred because Trump understood that you could get a Middle Eastern peace without. And he knew the Palestinians were never going to come to an agreement because they didn't want an agreement. And so he plowed around them, as Lincoln might have said, right? He negotiated instead with the Gulf states, and that was based on their constraint, their strong policy to constrain Iran, and their strong policy to reduce the international isolation of Israel. And we have to continue both. And the incoming Secretary of State needs to be asked about both. And he needs to go on the record with a real answer.
Well said, Jim Talent.
Rubio,
very well said.
Cruz,
I'm sure members of the Foreign Relations Committee are listening, and we'll follow up on that. I appreciate your joining me. Happy Thanksgiving. Coming right back with the National Security Advisor America, Robert O'Brien, in the next hour of the Hugh Hewitt Show.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
Jennifer in Tustin, California. Hi.
Hi, Dennis. I love the fun on your show. More importantly, the clarity.
Yes. Well, if you like fun and clarity, I'm your man.
Excellent.
I'm your other man. You may be married or have a boyfriend.
Yes.
So I fully.
I am. I have a wonderful man.
Good. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm your other man.
Great.
Right.
I've heard you say. My question is, I've heard you say several times of late on the show that you would not take the COVID vaccine, and I feel the same way myself. But I'm wondering, what will I do if the COVID vaccine is mandatory? In the same way that, child vaccines are mandatory in many states. Have you thought about that?
I have thought about it. It's a real dilemma.
Okay.
If they don't allow you to go on an airplane without proof of a vaccine, I would have to weigh not being able to travel and give speeches and do my cruises I cannot live a life without travel. Yes, exactly. It's
right.
See, I want everybody listening who doesn't know, I've taken every vaccine offered, and my kids have taken all of them. I never had any interest in vaccines. I just took them. But I don't trust the medical establishment any longer. They, like the New York Times, they have lost me.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Today's a big day. Today is the day that Pfizer will be formally requesting emergency use authorization for their vaccine against coronavirus. The president initiated and the administration implemented Operation Warp Speed, which is leading to the reveal that within weeks, it appears, millions and millions of Americans will start getting the vaccination against COVID-19. Of course, it's coming at a time that is urgently needed. In the vice president's words yesterday, coronavirus is surging through the nation. The U.S. death toll that has been attributed to coronavirus is over 252,000 Americans. 2,000 reported yesterday. Hospitalizations, according to the mainstream media, and I always know we have to look at that with a little bit of a wary eye, but in their words, hospitalizations across America have exploded. 80,000 Americans are now in the hospital getting inpatient treatment. Yesterday, the governor of California imposed a month-long 10 p.m. curfew for nearly everybody in the most populous state in America, California. And I just take a lot of comfort in knowing that the Trump administration delivered essentially a vaccine that in normal times would have taken 2 or 3 or 4 years.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Millions are praying, millions from around the world are praying for this election, which is obviously not yet settled. What do you see happening right now that people like me might be unaware of? What do you, being where you are and being close to the center, what do you see cooking?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt that this election, I don't use this word lightly, was stolen. President Donald Trump outperformed every part of the country that was not a focal point for Joe Biden to get enough votes electorally through the Electoral College to get over the top. Some great examples, Eric, and we have this incredible whiteboard here where we've been going through all of this. I mean, President Donald Trump outperformed Obama, he outperformed Mitt Romney, John McCain, and even his own numbers in 2016 dramatically. Miami-Dade County, President Donald Trump overperformed by 15 points versus 2016. He did better in New York City, Eric. He did better by about 5 or 6 points in New York City. And my best example for all of this, Eric, and this is just the most logical way that I could show it, is I'm from the Midwest. I know Madison, Wisconsin really well. And Madison, Wisconsin, of course, is where the University of Wisconsin-Madison is. And so in 2008, at the height of the Obama movement, President Barack Obama got 71% of the support in Dane County, Wisconsin. Joe Biden got 76% this time and 60,000 more votes. And the campus is closed, Eric. How is that possible?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Morning, glory, America, bonjour, hi, Canada, greeting to my 400 affiliates across the United States and the globe. Happy Thanksgiving Eve to all of you, safe travels and a safe Thanksgiving to you all. And to my friend Michael Oren, former ambassador of Israel to the United States. Dr. Oren is in the United States, presently visiting family. Dr. Oren, a happy Thanksgiving. I know it's a difficult time in your family, and our thoughts and prayers are with you.
Thank you very much. Thank you much. Good to be with you always, and happy Thanksgiving, really.
I want to also tell people as they do their Black Friday shopping virtually or in person, they ought to order The Night Archer. How are sales of your book of short stories doing, Dr. Oren?
Fine. They're doing well, thank you. It's a good time to read short stories, to be inside and, There are 51 short stories in this book, and everyone's completely different. And believe me, it'll keep you very, very occupied if you're locked down.
I love them, and I strongly recommend The Night Archer. Now to work. I assume, Dr. Oren, during your time in D.C., that you know Secretary of State designate Tony Blinken, National Security Advisor designate Jake Sullivan, Avril Haines, the DNI incoming, Linda Thomas Greenfield at the UN, of course, John Kerry, the climate czar. Am I correct about that?
I know almost all of them.
All right. So
some of them quite well.
What is your estimate of the incoming national security team for the Abraham Accords and Israel generally?
Well, we've talked about Tony Blinken in the past, Hugh, and we both have a high opinion of him, a very high opinion of him. He's a clear-sighted diplomat, and that's the rarest quality, to be clear-sighted. He is going to be serving an administration that has a certain position on, the Palestinian issue, certainly on the Iran issue. I understood from a briefing that Tony gave several weeks ago that he's not going to rush back to renew the Iran deal, but try to seek to improve it in various ways. That would be very good. I think we should not be passive in Israel. We have to engage Mr. Blinken on this and clarify for finally what exactly our expectations and interests in any renewed Iran nuclear deal. I worked extensively with Jake Sullivan. He's certainly a good person, but Jake was one of the architects of the nuclear deal. He negotiated secretly behind our backs with the Iranians and achieved the interim deal. So there's going to be baggage there, and I hope he would use this opportunity as National Security Advisor to rectify what all Israelis, and by the way, I think the vast majority of people in the Middle East view as a terrible and dangerous deal, and terrible and dangerous for the United States as well. So I hope he will use that high office to rectify that situation. Again, we should not remain passive. We've got to let them know what we think.
Now, Ambassador Oren, I'm a conservative realist, so I believe that facts on the ground matter. The major fact on the ground that is different from when Mr. Blinken and Mr. Sullivan were last in government is the Abraham Accord. This is a huge difference, and I am willing to give them a chance to adopt to that reality before criticizing them. Wouldn't even a liberal realist take into account the fact that the Middle East has been turned on its head since they were last in power?
One would deeply hope so. My experience is not just as a diplomat, but as an historian looking back over the course of America's Middle East policies, and we're talking about decades, if not even centuries, is that ideology plays a huge role. And if your ideology says that the Palestinian issue is the most important issue in the Middle East, if your ideology says that the United States has to somehow reconcile with Iran, that Iranian behavior will change if you respect Iran if you show Iranian respect and give it economic incentives. If you believe that deeply, you're going to act on it. It's going to be very difficult to go against it. And then on top of everything else, we have the natural tendency of any incoming administration to do what I call the AB, which is anything but. So, remember Obama came in and it was anything but Bush. And then Trump came in and it was anything but Obama. My hope is that Biden will come in and not say anything but Trump, because these agreements were forged by and through the good offices of Donald Trump. And I hope that this administration will not react with that AB sort of gut knee-jerk reaction, which is to move away from it. Because to do that would be to miss a great, great opportunity. We are on the verge of a completely different Middle East. It would be so tragic. You would return to the Middle East to the way it was 4 years ago.
Now, Ambassador Oren, since we last talked, Secretary of State Pompeo midwifed a meeting between the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and Prime Minister Netanyahu. How significant was that meeting to you and to Israel?
It was very significant, and I think everyone is gearing up for the possibility of a Middle East that returns to what it was 4 years ago, the status quo ante, with the renewed Iran nuclear deal, in which case the Saudis will want to come to draw close to Israel as the only power here in the region that's capable of defending the Arab world. What a world we live in. Israel is now seen as the defender of the Arab world. We should talk about the Arab-Israeli conflict. Remember that? So, it's a very positive development. I think Saudis are going to be very cautious because the Saudis, unlike the Bahrainis and unlike the Emiratis, are the custodians of the two holiest cities in Islam, Mecca and Medina, which it puts a certain constraint on their ability to to make peace with the Jewish state that contains the third holiest city in Islam, Jerusalem.
So, Dr. Oren, you're as a historian, I'm going to ask this. You remember the FDR-Churchill destroyer deal when FDR couldn't get into the war, but he got the destroyers to Great Britain. The United States has agreed to sell a bunch of F-35s to the United Arab Emirates, and Israel has nodded okay. That deal is already being criticized by incoming members of the president-elect's team. What do you think of the United States simply finding the F-35s it has, flying them to United Arab Emirates, and leaving them there, and resupplying ourselves as needed?
The United States Congress, not the administration, has made an historic undertaking to Israel. It's called QME, Qualitative Military Aid. It means that Israel should be able to defend itself against any Middle Eastern threat or any combination of Middle Eastern threats, including countries that have the F-35. And so the President of the United States, irrespective of who he is going to have to report to Congress twice a year how he is preserving Israel's qualitative military edge. And if it is deemed, if the professionals deem that qualitative military edge has been blunted, then the administration has to take steps to hone it again, which means we would be compensated. And I can think of certain ways we could be compensated for the sale of F-35s to these Arab countries in the Gulf. I'm not concerned about it. I'm not.
And I am concerned that it's not going to happen. I think it is necessary to deter Iran that those planes get to the United Arab Emirates. Do you agree with that assessment?
I think that there are ways we can cooperate with these countries and form a united strategic front against Iran. It's an amazing development. Hey, Hugh, how much time do I have?
2 minutes. You have the floor.
Okay. It's Thanksgiving. I'm an historian. Once upon a time, I wrote a book called Power, Faith, and Fantasy about America's involvement in the Middle East. I want to tell you an interesting Thanksgiving fact. Okay, the Pilgrims spoke Hebrew. They knew their Bible very well, and they came to America and they put the map of Palestine, of Israel, on their own map. There are 1,000 cities and towns in the United States with Hebrew names, right? Huh. My family's from Sharon, Massachusetts, so you got it. And they gave Hebrew names to their kids, and they wanted Moses as the national symbol of the country and all of that. But when it came to doing Thanksgiving, all right, they knew Hebrew. And the word for Thanksgiving in Hebrew is hodaya. That's how you say it. And there's a word in Hebrew which sounds a lot like hodaya. It's hodu. Hodu. Hodu in Hebrew is turkey.
Huh.
So on the it's no accident. You eat turkey on Thanksgiving because in Hebrew the word hodu means turkey and Thanksgiving.
Oh, that is terrific. I didn't even know that. Do Israelis have a tooth for turkey?
Sure. Everyone eats turkey. Hodu.
Now, what is the
weird thing is? But here the weird thing is hodu has another meaning in Hebrew. It means India. All right, India in Hebrew is hodu, and of course, Columbus thought he had landed in India.
Yes,
and so the Indians, the hodu, gave turkey hodu on Thanksgiving. Hodaya.
I grew up 7 miles from Sharon, Pennsylvania. I really had never thought of this before, Michael. I mean, we've got Vienna, Ohio. That's how we pronounce it. We've got lots of strange places across the United States named for the old country, but I didn't know we had lots of places named for Hebrew cities.
1,000. Those of you listening in Rehoboth, Delaware, right?
Yes.
All right. Rehoboth. How many Bethlehems? How many Sharon? Some of the names, for Hebrew speakers would sound kind of funny the way they're pronounced by Americans, but
yes,
they are very much Hebrew names. And Hebrew was a required language at all American universities. James Madison flunked Hebrew at Princeton and had to do an extra year.
I am impressed, Dr. Michael Oren. A happy Thanksgiving to you and yours. The Night Archer by Michael Oren. Go get it on Black Friday. Remember as well, please, go over to HughHewitt.com. Contribute to Prison Fellowship's Angel Tree program. While you're out shopping for things like the Night Archer, you can also give $22 or $220 or $2,000 to make sure that people in prison are connected with their children during Christmas. Thank you for your generosity. I'll be right back on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Millions are praying, millions from around the world are praying for this election, which is obviously not yet settled. What do you see happening right now that people like me might be unaware of? What do you, being where you are and being close to the center, what do you see cooking?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt that this election, I don't use this word lightly, was stolen. President Donald Trump outperformed every part of the country that was not a focal point for Joe Biden to get enough votes electorally through the Electoral College to get over the top. Some great examples, Eric, and we have this incredible whiteboard here where we've been going through all of this. I mean, President Donald Trump outperformed Obama. He outperformed Mitt Romney, John McCain, and even his own numbers in 2016 dramatically. Miami-Dade County, President Donald Trump overperformed by 15 points versus 2016. He did better in New York City, Eric. He did better by about 5 or 6 points in New York City. And my best example for all of this, Eric, and this is just the most logical way that I could show it, is I'm from the Midwest. I know Madison, Wisconsin really well. And Madison, Wisconsin, of course, is where the University of Wisconsin-Madison is. And so in 2008, at the height of the Obama movement, President Barack Obama got 71% of the support in Dane County, Wisconsin. Joe Biden got 76% this time and 60,000 more votes. And the campus is closed, Eric. How is that possible?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today.
This is Owen Strand for townhall.com. Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
Appreciate it. Chris is in San Antonio, Texas. Chris, you're on the Larry Elder Show.
Oh, wow. What an honor to speak with the great Eldersky. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Chris.
I guess my question is, can you imagine if this goes to the courts and then it goes to Congress and then it goes for President Trump like we all know it should?
Chris, mass suicide. Mass suicide.
This whole cities are going to be burned to the ground.
Their ears would explode. I mean, it would be catastrophic for the left if Donald Trump were awarded the election. You think we feel that the election was fraudulent? What do you think they're going to feel? They're going to go absolutely bonkers. They believe that the Russians not only interfered, but 78% of them believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election, even though our intelligence committee has never reached that conclusion. So they're going to go absolutely bonkers. Remember what Hillary advised Joe Biden?
So we've got to have a massive legal operation. I know the Biden campaign is working on that. We have to have poll workers, and I urge
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. If you are just joining us, I want to remind you that children who have one or both parents in prison need Christmas joy a lot more than children with both parents at home. And Angel Tree, a Ministry of Prison Fellowship, makes that happen. Would you go to HughHewitt.com, please, and be as generous as you possibly can? I have a new column over at the Washington Post. You have to Google Hugh Hewitt Washington Post, and you'll see the headline, Why the Georgia Senate Runoffs Are Hugely Important for Rule of Law Conservatives. The summary is, and I hope you will go and find it, just Google Hugh Hewitt and Washington Post. It comes to my column page at the Post. It'll be on the landing page later. It talks about what Donald Trump and leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, got done in the last 4 years. 3 Supreme Court justices, 53 appeals court judges, hundreds of district court judges. And it points out that if the Georgia Senate races are lost, Chuck Schumer becomes the majority leader. And if Chuck Schumer becomes the majority leader, no matter what Joe Manchin says, President-elect Biden will send radical left-wing nominees to become lifetime tenured judges, just as President Obama did and President Clinton did. And there will be no check on them unless the Senate is controlled by Mitch McConnell. I write at the end of this column, Democratic Senator Joe Manchin has said that in a Democratic-controlled 50-50 Senate, he would not support ending the legislative filibuster or support court packing. Some say this removes the threat of radical change, regardless of Georgia's Senate runoffs. But Manchin would almost certainly support most, if not all, of Biden's judicial nominees. If Democrats win in the Peach State, that means radical Raphael Warnock and lightweight John Ossoff, AOC light. Conservatives, if they win, conservatives can expect a liberal assault on the Trump-McConnell legacy of a federal bench bolstered by constitutionalists across the board. If Republicans continue to hold the Senate, it isn't clear whether Biden would face from McConnell the sort of blockading that Harry Reid practiced against George W. Bush, which was absolute. Certainly nothing McConnell did with Biden would be unprecedented, thanks to the Reid precedents. But you can count on this. If David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler lose the Georgia runoffs and Schumer takes charge of the Senate, the federal judiciary will begin a leftward lurch with each Biden nominee confirmed by a simple majority. If Perdue or Loeffler wins, Biden will be more inclined to nominate moderate jurists, not hard left living Constitution enthusiasts, certain to be rejected by a McConnell-led Republican majority in the Senate. In other words, I conclude, if Mitch McConnell remains majority leader, radical lawyers need not apply for lifetime appointments in robes. That's just the simple truth. So if you care about your religious liberty, which radical left-wing judges restrict, and if you care about your First Amendment rights to free speech and assembly, which radical left-wing judges do not protect, if you care about your Second Amendment rights to self-defense and to carry weapons and own weapons, which radical left-wing judges do not respect or even believe exist, if you care about your property not being taken without just compensation, then you have to help David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler win election in Georgia. And if you're in Georgia, you've got to register by December 7th and vote on January 5th. Vote early, by the way. I believe voting early opens on 12/12 in December. Vote early. And if you don't live in Georgia, help people who do get the word. You can call, you can write, you can contact people you know in Georgia. But it matters so much to your constitutional liberties, to your freedoms, that David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler win. And I've explained it at the Washington Post. Google Hugh Hewitt, Washington Post. You'll see the column. Get it printed out. Leave it at the Thanksgiving table for all of your friends. Get the word out. Joe Manchin's declaration doesn't mean a thing if Chuck Schumer is the majority leader of the Senate. Vote for Perdue and Loeffler. I'll be right back with Robert O'Brien, National Security Advisor. Stay tuned.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Burke.
Supreme Court Judge Samuel Alito recently made a startling point. Religious liberty is in danger of becoming a second-class right. Alito said as much to the Federalist Society.
Just as the COVID restrictions have highlighted the movement toward rule by experts, litigation about those restrictions has pointed up emerging trends in the assessment of individual rights. This is especially evident with respect to religious liberty. It pains me to say this, but in certain quarters, religious liberty is fast becoming a disfavored right.
Alito argued that not only religious liberty, but free speech is imperiled.
Support for freedom of speech is also in danger, and COVID rules have restricted speech in unprecedented ways.
This is a timely and prescient warning. Religious liberty is the very foundation of American freedom, and free speech is part of what makes America great. We cannot sit passively by as our cherished freedoms are whittled away. We must pay attention and take action where we can. I'm Owen Strand.
The Pepperdine School of Public Policy, America's unique graduate program for leaders. Learn more at publicpolicy.pepperdine.edu. Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
All right, let's begin with Jamie in Freehold, New Jersey. The famous Jamie of Freehold. Hello.
How are you today? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
So, I'm 46 years old. I just have to say that I discovered you about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the happiness hour makes my week.
I love that.
I literally look forward to you singing the original lyrics.
I love you for that. No, the original lyrics line. You cracked me up.
The original lyrics.
Yes,
yeah.
every
anyway,
week.
I recently, yes, absolutely. When I miss it, I'm unhappy.
Gotcha.
So I recently started smoking cigars, and I was just curious, very simply, what's your favorite cigar and why?
So I have a number of answers to that, and even though 98% of you don't smoke cigars, you should still be interested in the question because it's philosophic. It's not just cigars, and I'll explain why. So I have two answers, and one is, if I were to ask you what is your favorite food, would you have an answer?
No, because I have multiple.
Oh, that's my answer on cigars.
So if you were in a jolly good mood in front of one of your fireside chats, what's one that you'd go to?
All right, so now it's not one. There is a generic type that I tend to love.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Now, I just was reading some other news as I was getting ready for the show today. Johnson & Johnson, which has not been mentioned in the equation. It's all been Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical giant, is going to seek FDA authorization for their vaccine. And their vaccine is a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. And it looks like it might be February or sooner. We are likely weeks away from sort of going in an entirely different direction and getting closer to putting this behind us. Remember when Brett Baer used to say we're one day closer to this end of coronavirus? We need it. We need it. I know there's lots of arguing and anger and frustration over the election. There should be. We knew all along, all of us knew that when you're encouraging millions and millions of people to mail in ballots because of COVID, that there was a real strong potential for, the 27 toss-up races to all be won by Republicans down ballot, but Trump couldn't quite pull it off. Yeah, right. Biden got 10 million more votes than Barack Obama did. Yeah, right. Americans are not stupid. We're not blind. And we may be frustrated right now, and we may be stressed, and we may be prepared for whatever comes our way. We're going to persevere.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Who do you think gave the high sign or made the plan behind the scenes what to do?
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, joined now by National Security Advisor to President Trump, Ambassador Robert O'Brien. I always disclose he's a longtime friend of mine. Welcome home, Mr. Ambassador. The president just sent you to Asia, and you're home. Welcome back.
It's super to be back for Thanksgiving. I wish everyone out there, everyone listening to your show, a happy Thanksgiving this week, Hugh.
Now, Mr. Ambassador, before I get to the substance of a couple of very important things, Politico's Daniel Lippman ran a story about you yesterday that speculates on whether or not you're going to run for president. Senator Mike Lee applauded the idea. I declined to talk to Daniel because I knew I'd be talking to you and I could ask you. First question, if President Trump runs in 2024, would you ever run against him?
Never. He'd have my 100% support.
And if he doesn't run, are you running?
The Lippman piece is what I call a Washington inside the Beltway article. So I'm fully focused on my current job. I'm not running for anything right now. I'm not going to make a Shermanized statement about never running under any circumstances, but I'm focused on implementing the president's agenda and getting foreign policy victory for the American people, and that's all I'm focused on. But this is starting to become silly season for the Washington news media, and there's all kinds of speculation out there. So I leave that for what it is.
I'm guilty of it, too, because I wrote a column for the Washington Post in which I listed the 24 Republicans who have been mentioned to me. You were mentioned to me by a GOP operative who told me you would collect delegates in Utah, Idaho, Arizona, California, Hawaii, the Pacific Islands. You'd be a player at a convention. Have you had any conversation with any consultant about that path?
No, I haven't spoken with any political. I've been pretty busy, as you know, Hugh. We're just continuing to rack up wins for the American people on foreign policy, and that's my 100% focus at this time. But I'll leave it to you, the Washington class, to speculate about 2024. Right now, we're just focused on keeping America safe.
All right, let me talk to you about the fact that you came back from Asia. I want people to know where you went and why are the Chinese Communist Party so mad at you. Yesterday was full of Twitter denunciations from the Global Times and various Chinese diplomats wherever you went about the provocateur O'Brien. It was like classic Leninist stuff. What did you do?
Well, we started out with some Governor Dunleavy up in Alaska, talking to him about the strong relationship between indigenous people in Alaska, the Inuits there, and folks in Greenland, a critical area of national security for us. There are rare earth minerals in Greenland. There are important air bases, and so we talked about strengthening the relationship between the U.S. and Greenland through the people of Alaska and the people of Greenland. And China would love to get its hooks into Greenland, and we're going to stop that. And then Governor Dunleavy is going to spend time doing that with his citizens up in Alaska. We went to Japan, where we have a strong and enduring alliance with the Japanese, who have no interest in the Chinese taking over the Senkaku Islands and dominating the East China Sea. I don't think the Chinese like our alliance with Japan. I then went down to Vietnam, which was interesting. You and I both grew up in an era of a war in Vietnam. In fact, I remember living in Southern California back in 1974, 75, when a lot of Vietnamese were sending their children over unaccompanied to avoid a communist takeover. And my mom went down and volunteered to help those kids. And that was my first exposure to Vietnam. And to return to Vietnam now and be in Hanoi and have a strong relationship with the Vietnamese, who are frightened and terrified, but are also tough people when it comes to China. And to get some great deals, some great economic deals with Vietnam while we were there. That's something the Chinese didn't like. And then what really, I think, irritated them was being in the Philippines, where President Duterte, at President Trump's request, extended our visiting forces agreement. We sent precision missiles and ammunition to the Philippines so they could defend themselves against terrorists. And I did the sign over of those weapons and received the assurance that our forces would be allowed to stay for some more time in the Philippines. And that's something the Chinese really didn't like because they've got their eye on the Philippines exclusive economic zone. They want a weak Philippines that they can dominate and literally take over swaths of their territory, at least their maritime territory. So I don't think they were happy with me in any of these visits, any of the four, because they were all about strengthening alliances with the United States that would deter and deprive China of their goal of total hegemony over the region.
Ambassador O'Brien, I want to ask you now about the Middle East, even though you just got back from Asia. But I want to preface it by saying Secretary of State designate Tony Blinken, your successor designate Jake Sullivan. Have you met with either of them as part of the transition yet, or spoken with them about the transition?
No, I haven't, but I assume that will happen soon. I spoke with the Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, yesterday, and the transition will get underway. And as I've said in the past, we'll have a very professional transition process. And both Tony and Jake are professionals. They've been in the White House. Jake Sullivan, who will take over for me, is a bit younger, but has impressive credentials. He's a Yale law grad and Oxford grad, and spent some time in the prior administration as the national security advisor for the vice president. So he knows his way around, and we'll have a very professional transition, I'm sure.
Now, the incoming team has expressed interest in reviving the JCPOA. That would be a disaster for the Abraham Accords. Part of that JCPOA would be the easing of sanctions. Jim Talent earlier said he expects the incoming Secretary of State to be asked about the easing of sanctions. What is your recommendation to the incoming team about Iran and the Abraham Accords and how they are linked?
Well, what you see is a sea change in the Middle East, and it's something that was brought about by President Trump. It was a stroke of strategic genius that everyone said couldn't be done, that the Arabs and the Israelis couldn't make peace. And we have 3 peace deals with the Israelis between the UAE, Bahrain, and Sudan. There are more coming. And one of the reasons that there's an interest, I think, between the Arabs and the Israelis in getting together and putting aside all differences and embracing a common future, which is great for their people and great for the economies of the region, is a shared distrust and dislike of the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is the largest state sponsor of terrorism and is racing to get a nuclear weapon. And so, it would be a shame to see this budding peace that we've wanted for 70 years, since 1948 when Israel was partitioned, or Palestine was partitioned and Israel became a state. It would be a shame to see that peace process stunted because America made a misguided attempt to appease the Iranians. Look, we appeased them once and it didn't work. After the first JCPOA was signed, Iran engaged in terrorism and proxy wars throughout the region, and they did it with the funds that were made available to them through the JCPOA. And so it would be a tragic mistake to stunt the peace process between Israelis and Arabs, but to again give a lifeline to a regime that sponsors terrorism. So I'm hoping that these are smart men and women who are coming in to work with the new administration, assuming that takes place. And it would be a shame to see us appease Iran a second time in just a few short years.
Now, Mr. Ambassador, as part of the many agreements in the Middle East, the United States has agreed to sell F-35s to our close ally, the United Arab Emirates. They have they're little Sparta, Jim calls them. They're a close ally of ours. Those F-35s are already the subject of criticism from incoming President-elect Biden team. You're a student of history. You know what FDR did for Churchill by selling him destroyers. Is there any way to take existing inventory of F-35 and fly them to the United Arab Emirates and then backfill our orders so that the incoming administration does not upset the apple cart on this transaction?
I don't see that as something that's being done right now, but those are the sorts of things that are out there. But look, we're short on F-35s ourselves. Our Air Force and Marines and Navy require those platforms to defend ourselves in a great power competition that has taken center stage, and so I'd hate to deprive our folks of the platforms they need to keep us safe in the Pacific and in Eastern Europe. So, the sales of the F-35s to the UAE will move forward, I'm sure, and that's something that's been agreed to, and that's a way to allow the UAE to defend themselves, and allows us to redeploy our F-35s and our soldiers, sailors, and airmen and Marines into the critical area of great power competition. And so I think it makes strategic sense on a lot of bases, but I want to make sure that our soldiers and airmen have, and Marines have, and sailors have the weapons they need to defend America.
There is a report that Secretary Pompeo midwifed a meeting between the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and Benjamin Netanyahu. What are the results of that meeting? Is Saudi Arabia likely to sign on to the Abraham Accord?
Well, I think it would make sense for the Saudis to join the UAE and Bahrain and Sudan in the Abraham Accords, and it makes strategic sense for them, but it also makes economic sense. As we transition from, over time from fossil fuels, the Saudis and the Emiratis, the Bahrainis understand that they need to have a modern economy, and there's no better technological center outside of Silicon Valley than you have in that area of around Tel Aviv. It's it's startup nation, and the Israelis have a lot to offer from an economic standpoint, from a technology standpoint, and it just makes sense to be good neighbors with your close the countries around you. So I think it makes all the sense in the world from a cultural and economic, religious freedom standpoint for these nations to get together, but it also makes security sense, as you pointed out. So we hope the Saudis will join the Abraham Accords, and I think the sooner the better for all the parties, and especially for the people of the United States who have wanted peace in the Middle East, and we've invested a lot of blood and treasure trying to get peace in the Middle East for 2 generations now. So that would be a great result.
So, Mr. Ambassador, last question. At home, the achievements of the Trump administration are a renewed federal judiciary and now Operation Warp Speed, which a toxicologist told me yesterday is unprecedented in the history of science, both logistically and scientifically. But abroad, it is the awakening of the world to the threat posed by the Chinese Communist Party. Do you believe the incoming team with President-elect Biden, Vice President-elect Harris, you know them all, you know the national security team, do you believe they will be as purposeful and as clear-eyed about China as Team Trump has been?
Well, I hope they will be. I think one of the great legacies of President Trump, it's something that he'll be, the historians will talk about for 50, 100 years, is that he really recognized the threat of communist China in a way that hasn't been recognized in 40 years since we normalized relations with Beijing. And I think there's now a bipartisan consensus that the intellectual property theft has to end, the unfair trade practices have to end, the coercion of China's neighbors, whether it be India or the ASEAN countries that border the South China Sea, or Taiwan or Japan, the extinguishing of democracy in Hong Kong, that all has to end. The human rights violations of what's happening with the Uyghurs in Xinjiang is just horrific that's happening in the 21st century. That has to end. So I think the folks who will come in if Vice President Biden's sworn in on the 20th, and as I've said before, it looks that way now. They're smart men and women, and I think they'll understand that America can no longer turn a blind eye to the conduct of the Communist Party of China and the PRC, and so I think we're going to have. I'm hopeful that they'll build on the successes of the Trump administration on that front.
Mr. Ambassador, thank you for joining us. Robert O'Brien, come back before you leave town. I know you'll stay through you'll run through the tape. I know you will. President Trump relies on you, and I know you will. Thank you, my friend. Hey, America, don't forget, please don't forget, ReliefFactor.com, sponsors of the show, because that makes possible interviews like that with decision makers who are at the president's right arm, the people who bring you the news. They also bring you ReliefFactor.com, $19.95 gets you started. Stay right there. A little Thanksgiving verse coming up from Tarzana Joe on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Trending now on the Dennis Prager Show.
All right, let's begin with Jamie in Freehold, New Jersey. The famous Jamie of Freehold. Hello.
How are you today? Thanks for taking my call.
Thank you for calling.
So, I'm 46 years old. I just have to say that I discovered you about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's the happiness hour makes my week.
I love that.
I literally look forward to you singing the original lyrics.
I love you for that. No, the original lyrics line. You cracked me up.
The original lyrics.
Yes,
yeah.
every
anyway,
week.
I recently, yes, absolutely. When I miss it, I'm unhappy.
Gotcha.
So I recently started smoking cigars, and I was just curious, very simply, what's your favorite cigar and why?
So I have a number of answers to that, and even though 98% of you don't smoke cigars, you should still be interested in the question because it's philosophic. It's not just cigars, and I'll explain why. So I have two answers, and one is, if I were to ask you what is your favorite food, would you have an answer?
No, because I have multiple.
Oh, that's my answer on cigars.
So if you were in a jolly good mood in front of one of your fireside chats, what's one that you'd go to?
All right. So now it's not one. There is a generic type that I tend to love.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Now, I just was reading some other news as I was getting ready for the show today. Johnson & Johnson, which has not been mentioned in the equation. It's all been Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical giant, is going to seek FDA authorization for their vaccine. And their vaccine is a single-dose COVID-19 vaccine. And it looks like it might be February or sooner. We are likely weeks away from sort of going in an entirely different direction and getting closer to putting this behind us. Remember when Brett Baer used to say we're one day closer to this end of coronavirus? We need it. We need it. I know there's lots of arguing and anger and frustration over the election. There should be. We knew all along, all of us knew that when you're encouraging millions and millions of people to mail in ballots because of COVID, that there was a real strong potential for, I don't know, the 27th.
Joined now by the poet laureate of the Hugh Hewitt Show on Thanksgiving Eve. He's a couple of days early, normally on Friday, but we're happy to have him on this Wednesday. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Hugh. Happy Thanksgiving to
and to you and Mrs. Johanna and little Joey Johanna.
Yes. Thank you. And we're going to have a very legitimate and legal two households Thanksgiving tomorrow, both elected.
They're changing the rules, Joe.
And under 6 people, and because we have no friends, but that's okay.
They're changing the rules. I think that's illegal now. I think you better just dine alone.
Right. Which is what I usually do, so it's okay. Here's a little notion that I think we should explore. In years we find ourselves with less, we should be grateful more. Putting it another way, so I don't sound redundant, we take success for granted when successes are abundant. Those splendid guiding virtues like faith and hope and charity are valued above others precisely for their rarity. Eyes that kindle passion with their dazzling shade of green are sung in song and story as they're few and far between. Yankee fans love trophies, and they've picked up quite a few, but they'll never know the kind of joy that only Mets fans do. They experience elation that defies both rhyme and reason, and that kind of thing could happen with the Cleveland Browns this season. So when you count your blessings in a year of strain and sorrow, think of what you cherish as you say your prayers tomorrow. Those precious, blessed moments that you share across the room are no less consequential if you're sharing them on Zoom. Give thanks for every breath you take, for every race you've run. Remember that His glories rise with every morning sun. Morning glory and Thanksgiving grace to you, Hugh Hewitt.
That is a terrific poem, and you knew I'd be a softie for any Cleveland Browns-related poem, but it's just a great poem. Zoom. You know, when we started doing this 20 years ago, Zoom was not in our world.
No, you have to, roll with the vocabulary times.
Ogden Nash of our times, Tarzana Joe.
My heart leaps with joy. Thank you so much.
Are you, by the way, working over the weekend if people need a poem commissioned for Christmas?
Yes, I have some deadlines coming up next week, yes.
All right. Write to Joe at TarzanaJoe@Reagan.com. That's his email address. Rates are reasonable, TarzanaJoe@Reagan.com. Do you do Christmas card poems, Joe?
I haven't done one yet except my own, so if anybody wants one, get your orders in quickly.
How many different clues would they have to give you in the email?
Well, they most of mine are, a list of the wonderful things that have happened during the year, and sometimes they're not so wonderful. So we just, we rhyme on our way down the list.
I'm telling you, rates are reasonable. A memorable Christmas card awaits if you get to TarzanaJoe@Reagan.com. And, of course, Morning Glory and Thanksgiving Graces are available at TarzanaJoe.com. Happy Thanksgiving, Joe.
Happy Thanksgiving, you.
I've got to remind all of you, that Angel Tree needs your help and support. The banner is at the top of HughHewitt.com. I just got an email asking me about The Wild Adventure, TWA.US. So I checked. The Young Gun trips to Montana, which only cost $990, ridiculously subsidized by Jan Janura and team at TWA.US, are July 8th through 13th, July 15th through 20th, July 22 through 27th. Go to TWA.US. The Smiling Moose trips for everybody else. You got, people over 30. June 17th, July 8th, July 22, September 9 to 14. That June 17th trip, the water will be sparkling. It will be the first fishing on the Madison, June 17th. Now, that costs $2,890. These are Christmas presents extraordinaire. But I'm telling you, the people that you send, your husband, your dad, your son-in-law, they will, your nephews, they will all love you for it. The best 4 days, 5 days. Just go to TWA.US and look it up. Many of you did that yesterday. I think it's going to sell out before like 2 weeks. They sponsor the show. I close by reminding you, I didn't really give Relief Factor the credit they were due in the last segment. They make this possible. I'm thankful for every sponsor of the Hugh Hewitt Show. AndrewandTodd.com. They're the best mortgage brokers in the world. Birch Gold, which you find at HughGold.com. I'm grateful for them. The Hillsdale College people that I'm with, and we're going to have a lot of Larry Arnn tomorrow on the show. I'm so grateful to Prison Fellowship for sponsoring the Angel Tree ad campaign so that we can help the children of people who are in prison receive a little Christmas joy. I'm grateful to ReliefFactor.com. I'm grateful to everybody who supports the show, whether you buy one ad or 50, whether you sponsor segments like AndrewandTodd.com and HughGold.com. I don't care what it is you do, but I'm really thankful for Adam Ramsey and Ben Brigman and Harley Eide and Danielle, the booking queen, and Diana, the scheduling queen, and yes, radio blogger himself, Dwayne, who honestly, I think he came into work today just because I annually thank him because it is my Christian duty to do so. And he's actually kind of integral to the program. So thank you all, friends, and all of you out there. If you want to hear anything I do that's important, go to my YouTube channel, sign up, and then the subscriptions will come to you. Go to Facebook and sign up. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Parler. Follow me on Instagram. Most important of all, go to get that Washington Post column because we have to win Georgia. And I explain why in this morning's Washington Post column. Google Hugh Hewitt and Washington Post. And I will be back tomorrow with Larry Arnn for a Thanksgiving special, Friday with Matthew McConaughey and others, and Monday with all the news of the weekend on the next Hugh Hewitt Show. Happy Thanksgiving!